Mechabellum is a fantastic auto-battler game that I have been playing a lot lately. I picked it up while it was on sale for just over $10, and I have not been able to put it down. In a week, I put in over 40 hours. I'm playing this game like it's a full-time job, and it's going to negatively affect my life. Just kidding, everything's under control. Or maybe it's not, because I consistently wake up every 2 hours at night gritting my teeth and wondering when it will be an acceptable time for me to crawl out from the blankets and get back onto my computer to continue losing in Mechabellum. Oh yeah, I say losing because I'm really not too good at this game, but I am learning. Over the course of playing, I've essentially brought myself from 0 matchmaking rating, or MMR as we call it, to into the 800s as of writing this script. That's kind of a feat for me because I'm not good at RTS sort of stuff at all. Terrible, really. And this is pretty much the first auto chess game I've ever played, so it's not like I have experience coming into this one. Just another note about myself while I'm babbling here, I'm Sir Armor, and I've been using this YouTube channel for game stuff, video games. Specifically lately, I've been super into the whole mech genre, and I think we're gonna keep going in that direction, so if you want to keep up with my videos, please do the whole like, comment, and subscribe thing. I'm working toward that first 100 subs, and that seems like a cool number for me to hit. Now, back to Mechabellum. Mechabellum initially was an early access launch May 11th of 2023, before being fully released the following year, September 26th, 2024. It was thought up by a guy who goes by the name Bear-like and was made by the studio Game River. Firstly, the game started production under the publisher Paradox, but at some point that seems to have been moved to a publisher named Dreamhaven. Currently, the game is sitting on update 1.7, which has led to a lot of people being pissed about how it shakes up the gameplay meta. It added some buildings into the map, and that's made folks real angry. I never played the game before this, so this is really all I know, and I don't know, it's okay. The buildings are okay, I guess. They're annoying at worst and completely redundant at best. Maybe I'm too inexperienced about this very specific aspect. So, how does Mechabellum even work? What is an auto chess? How does the game play? Okay, so first things first, this is primarily a player versus player game. There is an option to play against AI opponents, but let's be real, that's not why anybody's playing this. So, firstly, you'll pick which type of match you want to play. Traditional 1 versus 1, a 2 versus 2, where the map's set up as a weird line that would be one team on the outer edges and one team next to each other in the middle, or a 4-player free-for-all that is kind of like a circle with an NPC enemy in the very center. Besides general matchmaking, of course, there are community challenge maps, in-game tournaments, sandbox testing grounds, private custom matches, etc. I pretty much have just been playing the classic 1v1, which I think is the main appeal of the game here. So at the most basic breakdown of gameplay that I can try to explain before going into further detail is that each turn, you and an opponent place game pieces onto your allotted sides of a map, and then watch a battle play out between the game pieces to determine who had the better tactical setup. Each game piece has an associated cost, and each turn you gain more supplies and units to place down on the map, slowly growing the battle each turn. The winner is determined to be whoever has their little army men left on the table at the end of the round, and their living units' associated points cost will damage the overall health points of the losing player. Once the overall health pool of the losing player reaches 0, a match winner is determined. Now a little more complicated. When the match begins, you first pick a specialist, which decides a specific bonus as well as your overall health points. Some specialists grant specified units at certain intervals, such as the Rhino specialist, which will place a level 2 Rhino onto the board on round 4. Other specialists have a sort of give and take advantage, like the Cost Control, which grants an extra 100 supply points to spend every round, but a disadvantage of reducing attack and health of all of your units by 13%. I'm sure there's probably some mathematical min-maxing here, but in my experience, specialist choice is dependent heavily on personal playstyle rather than a hard line. This specialist is the best one in the game and is the meta. Into the round, you'll get to start placing your units around the map. This includes your side of the playing field, and also potentially time-locked flanks of the enemy field. Of course, each game piece has its own unique quirks. Basically, they come in a few different types, being chaff, chaff clear, and carry. Chaff units being essentially disposable swarm types. They're cheap and used as cannon fodder to overrun and distract bigger targets. An example being crawlers, which is a swarm of melee-ranged little bug bots. They'll overwhelm single target carry units. Chaff Clear being a little bit larger units with typically some form of area of effect damage to destroy chaff units, an example being Fire Badgers, which are flamethrower tanks. The fire completely melts large-numbered chaff units. And finally, the carry units, which are larger, stronger units capable of dismantling other carry and or chaff clear, but not the best at clearing chaff themselves. An example being the Marksman, which is a single robot with a strong but slower sniper shot. The Marksman can blast through a unit of Fire Badgers, but gets too confused when looking at the crawlers. Now these types of units can also play a little differently depending on their size and shape. Some are ground units, flying units, elite units, giants, ground target only. Some can be upgraded from ground target only to aerial and ground target. Not only can you level up units after they gain enough experience points during battle rounds, but have up to 4 different technical upgrades available as well, like making the crawler explode on death into a pool of acid, or giving the hackers a shield. These 4 different technical upgrades can even be customized to your preferred playstyle outside of the combat matches. In between each round, you'll be presented with a choice of 4 cards. Depending on which round it is, this could be an additional unit to place, some sort of buff bonus to your turn, or to place on a unit, or potentially the card is even a spell. The spells are less about magic and more about dropping things like nuclear bombs or electrical storms. I don't think I mentioned it yet, but every player also has 2 towers on their side of the playing field. If the enemy destroys these, it sends out a big EMP explosion, which debuffs your entire board with slow for a period of time. You can also use them for personal gain with different upgrades for your side of the war, like boosting unit health percentages, or enabling an extra unit drop, or potentially even offering up the ability to remove your unit from the battlefield. Besides win or lose, raising and lowering player MMR, you can also earn cosmetic nonsense through a season pass. It's pretty mild stuff, really. Animated emotes you can play at your opponent during a match, avatar profile pictures and frames, sometimes unit skins. You can also buy some of this stuff with real money, which is... None of it seems to be any sort of pay-to-win junk, so I don't really care. I guess there's always an argument in situations like this that winning is making your character look cool, and if that's locked behind a paywall, then it's pay-to-win. But I don't know, the camera in-game is pulled back so far for me that I don't think I even notice unique enemy unit skins anyways. Speaking of that, I guess I'll talk about the overall visuals. Yeah, it looks fine for what it is. Like I said before, during actual gameplay, the camera, you'll usually have pulled back so far, there's less focus on the game art itself. Of course, looking up close at the units, they've got cool designs. The Fang Mech is shaped like a little fang. You've got standard tanks and then UFOs that are next to War of the Worlds looking tentacle robots, and all of this stuff is cool. I would especially like to see more of the concept art in the loading splash screens, considering so much of the actual in-game art is overlooked over the gameplay. In the same vein of this being a gameplay-forward game, the sounds and soundtrack also don't really stand out for me. For music, it's pretty generic sounding. I think there's only one or two soundtracks, maybe. Typical military action game sounding stuff. It's not off-putting or anything like that, but also it's not stand-outish. It's not like Mechabellum is giving us a soundtrack of 20 jazz funk greats. Similarly, sound effects hit an acceptable but unmemorable state for me. The robots battle and blow each other up, there's booms and bings, and it's all fine and dandy, but there's never like a specific laser sound that itches my brainstem and sends a shiver down my spine, if you know what I'm saying. While I have loved my time with this game so far, it has presented me with some problems. Initially, I was getting a freeze-up to crash bug at seemingly random intervals. Mucking about in the settings to change resolution as well as verifying my game files seems to have fixed this. Sometimes, still, there's intermittent freezing, usually associated with longer-running end games. I think there's maybe some optimization issues with the sheer amount of units and particle effects battling by this point in certain matches. The game itself even gives a warning of its bad performance when entering 4-player game modes. I have a pretty decent computer, so this could be a lot worse on differing hardware setups. Also, there is what I believe to be a smoke particle effect on one corner of the desert map, which seems to cause me massive frame rate drops when my camera is panned over it for some reason. On top of this, there have been infrequent login issues upon booting up the game, something to do with the connection to Steam servers, I believe, and also infrequent refusal to load into matches. Sometimes my loading screen gets to the portion where it says it's waiting for the opponent to load in, and then it decides not to go any further, and I have to restart my game. Annoying. To get really nitpicky, some of the UI feels unprofessional. The chat box is sort of clunky and in the way and present in loading screens, which also were watermarked, except the resolution cuts off part of the text. Obviously not world-ending problems, but they do leave an impression with a noticeable lack of polish. Also, the unit point-of-view camera is complete junk. I would love a better camera angle to watch battles play out for entertainment, but the one presented only manages to give me weird and unentertaining angles, and I have to fight it to get a cool visual. I don't really like that too much. And since I brought up the chat box, I should also say that this game I don't think has any sort of moderation at all. There is a profanity filter, but it only gets so far. I've been on the internet a lot, so I kind of know the nasty sort of stuff people say, and it doesn't bother me. I do think that while I played this game, I've seen pretty much every nasty word that you could come up with in the chat already. A lot of vile, provocative, naughty stuff, political baiting, not so great current events chatter. Some of the people that play this game are completely feral. In terms of my issues with actual gameplay, though, not so much. This is an online game experience, which does mean that the game is dependent on people actually playing it, and situationally, this can be scary. Like the recent patch that everyone seems to be upset about with the buildings. Even though I don't necessarily see them as game ruining myself, if all the other players do, and then leave the game over it, then I am left without anyone to play the game with, which would suck. There's no guarantee this game won't have some sort of bad balance patch or something like that in the future, which absolutely destroys it. Granted, I've already put in like 50 or 60 hours or whatever, I definitely already got my money's worth, and I do plan to continue playing the game. There is, however, always a chance that my plan goes kaput. Also, this game could use more maps. There's really only 3, a forest, an airport, and a desert, and the desert map is repeated 3 times with different lighting. Considering the efforts to shake up the maps with the buildings update, I'm surprised there aren't other maps with hazards in them, lakes, rivers, swamps, etc. I think there's a lot of potential there to shake up gameplay standards as well as introduce more visual flavors. Besides just terrestrial biomes, you could do a flying-only unit space battle, or heavier gravity moon planets, or add in a whole water-based boat mechanic. There's a lot of potential for expansion here. My final thoughts: this game is fantastic. It's super easy to pick up, but can be incredibly deep to learn, and nearly every matchup creates a new scenario which makes the experience feel fresh every single time you play. There's no better feeling than when your tactical setup finally comes to that perfect point where you completely sweep the enemy board. I see myself continuing to play this one for many, many more hours.